Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly Thrive in China Roundtable, where we talk about China market entry, branding issues, trade issues, customs issues, finance issues surrounding doing business in China. Before we start today's session, I just want to talk about how the roundtable works. We're here to educate you. You may have questions throughout the presentation. Just put them inside the chat box and we will get to it once we've got the Q&A. This is your time spent for the next 60 minutes. So whatever questions you have, remember it's China, so there are no dumb questions. Just put them in the chat box and we will get them squared away when we hit the Q&A section. From a technical standpoint, we are using Zoom meeting. Matt is a co-host. He's our guest speaker for today. So if I get kicked off or he gets kicked off, either one or the other will just resume until the other person comes back on again, and we will finish off today's presentation. If you get blocked off, just try and log off, log back in. Otherwise, we are recording today's session, so a recording will be provided to everybody. Who am I? My name is Kristina Koehler-Coluccia. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I'm a leading expert on inbound investment into China with 18 years of on-the-ground experience in corporate services and corporate compliance. What we do is we help companies or entrepreneurs who are looking to get into the Hong Kong or Chinese market develop a business model, a business strategy on how they want to do that. We implement it, and then we focus a lot on growth and scaling up and protecting the business. So if you're interested in what we do, don't hesitate to reach out. That's going to be enough for me. I'm the moderator for today. I'm going to be very quiet for once. I'm going to leave Matt, who is a guest speaker on today, to talk about the power of brand mascots in China. And Matt is the founder and creative director at Flug Creative. And what I love about what Matt does is that it is so different compared to what a lot of other media agencies or brand agencies are even discussing with brands that are going into China. It's something so unique, so different, but fits so well into the Chinese market. And I want Matt to discuss more how that works. So Matt, I'm going to leave it to you. I'm going to stop my share, and then you can share your screen.
Okay, off we go.
And I'm just going to mute myself in the meantime, Matt. If anything pops up, just holler.
Okay, no problem. As long as everything's okay, give me the thumbs up in terms of how it's looking. All right, great. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming along. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how a brand mascot character can help most companies, I think, reach people in a more meaningful way and ultimately grow your brand. I'll cover the design process. I'll talk about some design standards that I think that everybody should follow. I'll show you some of our previous work. And one thing that I will probably repeat several times is the value of storytelling when it comes to design and when it comes to marketing as well. So we are registered in Shanghai, thanks to Kristina, and our parent company is in Hong Kong. So just a little bit about us. I've been in IP development for 6 or 7 years. And before I started my company, Flug Creative, I was the creative director for Dark Horse Comics, which is the third largest comics company in the world, significantly after Marvel and DC, admittedly. So when I started Flug Creative, I basically put together the best group of designers, illustrators, and animators within my network and people that I had worked with before. And I'm quite proud of the work that we've done so far, which I'll show you soon. So I started the company with the goal of offering niche creative services that differentiated us from the many kind of generalist design houses out there. So as I said, we specialize in creating brand mascot characters and also consumer products. Though we do help clients with like graphic design and packaging design needs as well. So if you think of like quite a few big international companies like Michelin, Mr. Clean, Kellogg's, KFC, and then in China, you've got Tencent, Meituan, Jingdong. All of them have got very recognizable characters that has helped them with their success and become household names. So what I'd like to emphasize is that in China, anthropomorphic characters and cartoons are even more ubiquitous than the US, significantly more ubiquitous. And they are also a lot more palatable to the adult sort of cultural palate, I guess. So they're just kind of more accepted and more common, basically. The biggest selling point for me to specialize in brand mascots is that they're so much more powerful than just a simple branding or a basic logo design in terms of the impact that they create. When we create a mascot, we try to deliver against 5 main criteria. So they are how well it represents the brand, its relatability, its recognizability, its uniqueness, and its memorability. So the reason why brand mascots are so powerful is because they are anthropomorphic. So they give like a real kind of human face to the brand and an instantly recognizable personality, which adds a lot more of a personal touch to interactions with customers, which ultimately drives repeat sales. Mascots can also be their own source of passive revenue after you've grown them to a recognizable degree, mostly through licensing, which is now a $292 billion industry in China. And for me, that's the ultimate goal that anybody should have for their mascot. So in terms of the way that I approach my company, we have our own brand mascot, Floob, that you can see here. And he's also a character that we are very actively trying to license. And we're getting week by week more and more kind of licensing deals just using Floob and his friends. So I'm going to get into the design process next. And I'm going to use Floob as an example, and then I'll show you some of the other character designs that we've done after that. So anyway, we start with rough sketches. We're playing around with different shapes, different expressions, all of that kind of stuff. We just stick to black and white at this stage because color can be kind of distracting and confusing. You know, you could have like one red one and one blue one, and the design might actually be, the blue one might be better than the red one in terms of the basic design and how well it suits the personality of the company. But simply because the CEO or the marketing manager prefers red, maybe they'll be more inclined to go for that one. Anyway, what you see here is an extremely accelerated version of the entire process. We did significantly more sketches than you see here, but you can at least kind of see it step by step and how it kind of got broken down during the sketching stage towards sort of semi-finalization. So a little fun fact. One of the things that guided our sketching was to base the design on the Floob Creative logo, specifically the lowercase f. So he's got a curl on his head, a curl on his tail, and curly hands. He's gelatinous, he's fluid, He's got soft, rounded features, all just like the logo. He personifies creativity, fun, and a little bit of magic as well, which gets into some of the storytelling later on, which precisely reflects our brand values. And for me, that is the most important point for any kind of brand mascot character. It needs to look like the personality of the brand. Okay, so after we were happy with the basic concept, we played around with different colors, different proportions a little bit, different features, different line weights. And it was all basically to figure out what we could do to create the most impact off that basic design. We settled on a fairly unique Tiffany blue. We added thickness to the lines, we added shading, and I think that you can see the difference between the initial sketch and the final version and see how much more it pops. So it's absolutely crucial that that a character is always drawn in the same way. That means maintaining the right proportions and keeping everything consistent. So something that we do every time that we create a new character is create one of these 4-point turnarounds. So that then serves as a reference for 2D illustrators, so they can think about the character from different angles, and also for a 3D designer when they come around to making the 3D model. Like I said, storytelling is a big thing behind all of this. So that means we need to have, well, when we're designing, we need to have a very clear idea of who the character is, what his backstory is, features, abilities, and all of that needs to be guided by and fit with the personality and messaging of the brand that it represents. I've shown this here relatively late in the design process, but it generally happens as a kind of parallel or back and forth process at the sketching stage. So when we're conceptualizing, we're thinking about not just what the character will look like, but who the character is and what kind of personality it can have. For Floob, I ended up writing a 4-page story to explain like his origin and who he was, and really kind of get into the head of the character, and that could help me kind of figure out who he is, and then that would guide the design later on and help me figure out, how to use him, how to pose him and stuff like that. Okay, so we've got our turnaround, we've got our character story, we've got our finalized design. So it's time to start, injecting that personality into the poses rather than just that basic forward-facing sort of pose. So we start playing around with those ideas and figuring out what kind of things this character would do, what kind of expressions it would have, and yeah, just bring it to life. Once we'll do like a lot of sketches for that. We'll take the best ones that we like, we'll put them into Adobe Illustrator and create vector illustration renderings that are scalable to an infinite degree. So you don't lose quality at any size that you scale them to. I've got a pretty strict illustration process that I make my illustrators use, and that makes sure that we have like a layered file and make sure that the line widths and the proportions and everything are always consistent. So next we bring the character into 3D. This might not be necessary for every brand. I mean, there are plenty of brands out there that just use 2D drawings. for their brand mascots, but it can help make like some really stunning visuals, and it can also serve as a product model for design later on, like a 3D model that you can print, 3D print to begin with, and then manufacture. Be it a soft toy or a plastic toy, or a key ring, whatever. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I think the goal of any company should be to license their character ultimately, or at the least sell their own products. So to that end, we create product concepts. I started as a product designer. That was my first job in the kind of IP development space. Again, that's the second most common service that we offer at Fluid Creative. So basically, we use Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Dimension to make mockups. And then when it's time to create the actual products, we will take the vector files that we created before, send them to the company, to the factory, and then they can start making the products. Now, factories do have different levels of ability. So the rule of thumb is to make your files as self-explanatory and as foolproof as possible. Ideally, you'll have Pantone references for every color. You'll have a guide for the size and proportions of artwork and how they should fit onto the product. And preferably some suggested ideas for what materials they should use and printing techniques. So if you've got really competent product people on your team already, fantastic. If you're working with experienced factories who already know these rules, fantastic. And then you can cut down on production time. But it does pay just to simplify this process for everybody as much as possible by having that knowledge beforehand. So a natural fit for brand mascot characters is the FMCG sphere. I mean, there are plenty of other industries where it works as well. But I show this slide to sort of show how well a brand mascot can fit on packaging. So a lot of FMCG companies use brand mascots basically just to stand out against their competitors, again, to add that face and that personality, especially if the character is already kind of well known and will attract familiar eyes. So one of the keys to product design in general, this is not just for packaging design, but also for your product designs themselves, is to have a visually consistent set of product and packaging designs. That means if you take any one product and you put it up next to all of the rest of the line, the entire set of products, nothing looks out of place. They all look like they fit together, either on like a physical shelf or on an online store. So as I said, my goal is to develop Flube and what I have called the Flubiverse into a licensed property that I can sell. The dream being like an animated TV show or a video game. So we started with Flube himself, and then we created a whole cast of other characters for him to meet. We designed like an entire land called Chromia, which is the land of paint. Every character has got its own unique description, its own skills, personality. We know the relationships between the characters, as I said, we design the environment, and we've already written about five ideas for pilot episodes if we were to make it into an animated TV show. That's not just relevant for animation. Having a family of characters gives the main character more possibilities for interaction. So, you know, you can see how he, she, it comes to life more through the way that it interacts with its friends. It opens up more possibilities for design, and it increases licensing potential as well, because you'll have different demographics that are attracted to different characters as well. You know, just as some people may prefer Donald Duck to Mickey Mouse. Yeah, as I said, we're in negotiation for quite a few deals. We have a couple already running, and I cannot wait to see the Flooberverse characters come to life. You might see a 7.5 meter high Flooberverse display in some of the malls in Beijing coming out this autumn, I think. Okay, so that's enough about my own character. Let me show you some of the work that we've done for some of the other companies. And the key point that I want to emphasize again is that different companies are suited to different kinds of mascots with different personalities and different illustrative styles. So as I said, your mascot needs to be individual to your brand. And so that's what we've tried to do with all of these characters that we've done. So Louis Vuitton wanted to create a series of animated GIFs to represent a particular product line. So we help develop a character and create a bunch of animated stickers. This was a bit of a challenge because in general, it can be quite tough matching a cute kind of cartoon character with a luxury brand that tend to generally be, you know, quite serious and sophisticated. And, you know, this kind of cartoon character is arguably childish and maybe too cute. But this one, they were really happy with, especially in Asia. And they actually ended up developing their own NFT mobile game using this character. You can download it on the App Store. It's called Vivian, I think. And that's already had 500,000 downloads. So this character has been quite successful for them. As I said, I was the creative director for Dark Horse, and Dark Horse's most well-known character is Hellboy, that some of you may be familiar with from the movies. The original artwork in Hellboy is very jaggedy and dark, and I didn't feel like it was super appropriate for the Chinese market. So I decided to create this cute version specifically for the China or wider Asian market, so that the character would be more accessible and received better by a wider audience, including some people who might not know him, rather than just the super fans who love Mike Mignola, the creator's original artwork. And also to increase the overall visibility of the IP. One thing that we did to help market this was a series of offline events, which was partnering with an international design studio, and we held a China-wide design contest based around this new design, where we basically gave the design to the kids and let them play with it, illustrate it differently, paint it out, and all of this kind of stuff. Again, so marketing is not just about what you do online, but the kind of events and way that you use your character offline too. Unfortunately, my animations are not working well with Zoom, so you can't see any of this stuff come to life. But this is Lulu Birdie. We created her for a lady called Cindy Reed, who's an ex-PGA champion, and she has 3 golf schools within China. So after we created the character, we basically had a launch party. We invited her students to come along and vote on a name, and they all voted for Lulu. We added the name Birdie later on to give it a little bit more punch, and also to help with copywriting as well, because trying to get the copyright for just the name Lulu would be near impossible in China. But getting Lulu Birdie made it much easier. So yeah, we created also a series of 16 WeChat stickers for her and her clients and her partners to basically share, and they use them all the time in their chats. That also appears on their official WeChat account as well. I'll just show you quickly here. Just on my phone here, if you go into stickers, then, okay, you can see all the ones that I've saved for myself. But along this top bar here, these are all the official accounts, right? So if I click on Lulu Birdie, then all of her stickers automatically come up. And you can then download them as an entire set. So that's certainly something that we suggest for any clients that want to develop these kind of animated stickers for people to share and hopefully go viral. Okay, so we also helped Cindy design a series of golf-related products featuring the character. Again, the key here is visual consistency, right? I hope you'll agree that there's no single product here that is the wrong color or has like a weird design or something like that. It all kind of matches together, I think. Okay, so this is a totally different kind of brand mascot character. This was done for Mr. and Mrs. Bund, which is a fairly upscale restaurant along the river here in Shanghai. And what they wanted to do was basically create a series of digital comics. And so both in terms of the persona of the brand and their marketing purpose, we made something that was much more realistic and comic-like rather than super cute. So it was the marketing intention and the branding that ultimately drove the character design here. So this is the first commercial character I ever created about, what was it, 15 years ago. It was for an English teaching textbook in Japan that's still being sold and has done quite well. The idea being that this alien has come to Japan to learn English and accompany the learners along their journey of language learning, and he goes through all sorts of adventures, and every page, I think there are about 80 or 90 pages in the book. Every single page has got this character on it, and he's doing all sorts of crazy things. And this really differentiates the book from your average English teaching textbook, because the students just love the character, and they can kind of they ultimately enjoy the lesson more. This was also created for a company in the education industry, also English teaching actually, and we also made like a set of animated stickers. Again, I'm sorry that I can't show you the animations right now. But the criteria that we used for creating those stickers were three. One, is it useful? Which is to say, if you use these stickers, are you going to be able to use them on a daily basis in your chats? Can you just kind of pepper them into your conversations? So simple ones like hello, thank you, goodbye, all of that kind of stuff. That's fairly staple with most WeChat sticker sets. Two, is it unique? So there are plenty of WeChat sticker sets out there. So obviously you want to be competitive and you want to use animations that are somehow funny and not been done before, which I think that we accomplish fairly well. And then thirdly, does it express the characters and ultimately the brand's personality? So those are the three main criteria that I think of when we're thinking about every single one of those 16 different stickers. This is a family of characters that we created for Krispy Kreme, where every character represents a different product within their line at the time. As I mentioned before, the usual process is to start with a single character and then kind of grow the family from there. In the case of Krispy Kreme, they wanted to build the entire family from scratch, which made sense because they were trying to represent each individual product with an individual character. Okay, so I'm sure that most of you have come across logo and visual identity guides before, but you may not be familiar with style guides. The main difference being is that a style guide will not only provide the kind of guidelines for design usage that you'll get in any kind of visual identity guide, but it will also provide a library of creative assets. And that's something for use by designers, marketers, licensees, and they can be upwards of 100 pages long. In the first job that I had that I mentioned before, I was working with Marvel style guides, and they were 200 pages long. There were just so many different assets in there, and as a designer, I can just take those assets and apply them directly onto products as creatively as possible. Like, it's not just a logo slap where you're taking a graphic going, bam, there's your t-shirt. It can be that simple, but as a product designer, you want to think a little bit more outside of the box and be more creative in the way that you apply those assets. But to have a rich library of assets to begin with is obviously very helpful. So here are a few pages from the Hellboy Q style guide. So you can see the do's and don'ts. You can see more complex illustrations as well as the basic poses. You can see patterns, and you can see a packaging guide. The full guide is about 80 pages long, and we would send this to any of our licensees as soon as they sign an NDA. That's another point I would like to stress, is that you need to protect your creative assets once you have them made, and I would never share a style guide with anybody if they had not signed an NDA beforehand, or if we didn't have a very clear partnership. This is another one also done for Dark Horse, for a cute character called Tentacle Kitty. Once again, you can see similar kind of assets here. The one difference that we did for this and the next style guide as well is that we created full posters as well that had all kinds of lighting effects and like full backgrounds and stuff like that. That being this one here, Secret Order of the Teddy Bears. the idea behind this IP was that you have this small military unit of teddy bears that protect children from monsters after the lights go out. We started just with 2 characters, actually. The pink one in the front and the brown and red one kind of in the middle. Those were the original characters from the comic book that we began with. And then we developed a team of 10 different characters. Again, all of them totally unique. You know, they had different military positions, different skill sets, different props, and even different cultures. This was a pretty big licensing win, one of the big licensing wins that that we had with this IP was one licensee sold 20 million RMB worth of merchandise in a single weekend, basically just taking our style guide and using it to create a line of apparel. Okay, so once you have your character design and hopefully a working style guide, it's time to put your characters out into the world, right? So my philosophy is that, generally speaking, a character should appear on all of your assets, or so as many assets as possible. Like, really put the character to work, you know, on as many marketing materials as you can, because it should really associate your customers with your brand identity. So, you know, we've already talked a little bit about WeChat stickers and how useful and ubiquitous they are within China. And again, it's a possibility for your character to go viral, as many characters have. I can think of a lot of examples on the WeChat platform where people have just really enjoyed a particular sticker, and that has made the character, and therefore the brand, go viral and give them a lot more chances for licensing and even just direct sales from the company. Yeah, I think I've talked enough about WeChat stickers. Another couple of things that you can do is create like seasonal posters and also giveaways. So with seasonal posters, most companies that I can think of in China will send some kind of greeting message, some kind of design to their customers and to, you know, within the organization, and that will be, you know, for Chinese New Year, Dragon Boat Festival, Mid-Autumn Festival, National Day, and many of them will do it for Western holidays as well, so like Valentine's Day, Christmas, even Easter sometimes. In general, these designs tend to be pretty boring. It's basically like just text with a logo, and they're pretty unlikely to be shared outside of the company's inner circle. So for me, that's another opportunity to create something more interesting and show off the personality of your brand by using a brand mascot character. And then with regard to giveaways, that's another way of increasing your WeChat and Weibo traffic as well, which is to basically offer free downloads for people. For example, backgrounds like you see here on the iPhone. So that's a pretty comprehensive overview, I think, of what we do. I'll just give you a very, very quick rundown of what we typically offer clients as a full package, and how long it takes to design. So depending on the client's needs, they might engage us for all of these services or just a few of them, or they might start with, like the basic package and then come back for a more extended one later on. So this is a fairly rough timeline for the entire design package, pretty much everything that we offer. It can be sped up depending on the frequency and the clarity of communication between ourselves and the clients, and also the number of revisions that the clients need as well. I like to be conservative at the beginning, so I've put here 2.5 months, but it could easily be faster than that. As you can see, it follows a fairly linear step-by-step process. Though after the brand mascot character design is finalized, we can start doing some things in parallel. So for example, like product design and style guide creation. In terms of the deliverables that we've listed here, these are our kind of minimum recommended quantities, and they will generally be the same number that we will charge for, but we will generally over deliver. So, you know, for example, we say 12 mascot concept sketches to begin with. More likely we'll give you 20. Same with product design, same with everything else. So yeah, that's basically the rundown of the entire company. This is how to get in touch with me. If you'd like to learn more, I'm happy to send you this presentation. And another thing that I'd like to offer to anybody watching this is a guide called The Ultimate Brand Mascot Marketing Guide for China, which I wrote in conjunction with my partner over at Duno Marketing, that we spent about a year developing. It was a long process. It's still a pretty short guide. It's only about 35 pages, I think. But it took us a long time to put together, and we basically just wanted to offer it to our clients to educate them and give them something to think about.
I'm just unmuting myself. Thanks so much, Matt. I'm interested to look at that guide myself. I'll shoot you an email for it. Let's hit. I'm just going to share screen. Stop. I'm going to put it over here. So in terms of questions that have popped in, one thing that for me piqued my interest was the fact that you used the word cute a lot. So and I know why you used it, having lived in China. I get the Chinese consumers, but I think that's something that I would love for you to clarify a bit more. You know, what are the Chinese consumers looking for in terms of using mascot? I mean, you know, if I'm going to download a bunch of WeChat stickers, why do I go for cute versus non-cute, right? I mean, for me, my perception of China is this: adults love cartoons. I mean, in the Western world, you think more that children up to a certain age will stick to cartoons. But in my office, when I look at people's mobile phones, or even like what they're doing in their lunch hours, it's watching cartoons. It's all cartoon related. And they associate everything with cartoons. And you know, I've got 40-year-old women who on their desks in the office have stuffed animals. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, all of the products that they buy,
mean, everything that they have on their desk,
cases,
exactly. It's all cartoons, and even for men, it's all things related to cuteness. So I'd love for you, maybe you could touch a little bit more on that, because I think that's also what differentiates China and its consumers to the rest of the world, or at least the Western world.
Right. Well, I mean, I would be out of my depth if I was trying to give you an in-depth psychological or cultural explanation for it. As I said kind of at the beginning of the presentation, it's just that cartoons and cuteness are in Asia in general, not just China. I mean, it very much applies to Japan, possibly more so. Yeah. They're just more acceptable to the adult cultural palate. So with regard to WeChat stickers, I would say that there are two types of appeal. One is cuteness, and one, ironically, is grotesque. And it's often kind of weirdly drawn characters that kind of look messy, or sometimes even cute characters doing weird, funny, grotesque kind of things. I think that mostly applies really only to WeChat stickers because they're animations. You know, they're just for that moving entertainment, and it's basically trying to be like a little bit cheeky in the conversations that you're having with other people. But in terms of the characters that represent brands, I would say 90% of the time they are kind of cute. As you can see from all of these ones behind me that I designed, like those, they're all pretty much cute, I think, without a fault.
Yeah. Another question I had, and this is specifically to FMCG brands, right? Because that's predominantly the focus that you've put on. But I do have a separate question in relation to B2B clients. Is, you know, like I see Louis Vuitton having one mascot, and my assumption is that it is for the entire brand, right? It's not, that mascot is not broken down into products. Is that fair to say? Or was it broken down into specific products that they sell? Like the flower?
That one was specifically designed for the WeChat stickers, to help launch a particular product line,
Oh, sorry, Matt, you're muted. You went mute, sorry. Can you unmute yourself? Matt, you're muted. Hold on. There we go.
Sorry.
There we go. Yep, you're back.
Yeah. The Louis Vuitton character, was basically the way that they wanted to market it was through creating those stickers, and it was for the launch of a particular line of bags, and it ended up that people really liked the characters, and you know, people used them a lot, and so, like I said, they ended up making that NFT game.
Okay, because I'm curious, you know, we have clients that go in to China and they have a portfolio of products that they're selling. So if you look at food and beverage, I saw you've got a bunch of food and beverage clients on there. You have clients that are selling drinks, they're selling snacks, they're selling wine, they're selling tea. I mean, they could have a whole portfolio of different products that they're looking to sell. As a strategy, would you be creating a mascot for the whole brand itself, or would you be creating a mascot that is specific to certain products that they're selling?
In general, the strategy is to go for the entire brand. But that's a really good question, because with FMCG, if you think of like Kellogg's, right? They've got a bunch of different mascots, and each of those mascots is very specific to the particular cereal that they're selling. Right. So yeah, it could work either way. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine like an FMCG brand where you've got Mickey Mouse on every single product. I don't know if that would work so well for FMCG, but for other industries, particularly, I would say that you would be best to have like a single mascot that represents the entire company.
And then maybe the universe starts when you start building up the friends, maybe for specific products potentially. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. On you know, when I talk to the clients about their marketing branding strategies, and again, I'm not a marketeer, I'm not part of a media agency or anything like that, but that is generally the first step when they go into China and they sell, is they have to build up their brand awareness in some shape or form. So my curiosity is around, you know, you go to these media agencies that offer a strategy, and most of the time they don't offer this. They don't offer this whole brand mascot ideology around it. What do you have to do first? Do you need to go to a media agency who develops the brand strategy and then come to you? Like how does that work when you're just trying to build a China brand strategy?
Well, I think you need to go to the marketing agency with an idea already of what you have in mind. So as I said, this
and they'll
this
either
is a pretty
shoot you down or not.
Oh, sure. Sure. I'm sure they have their own ideas. But you know, a lot of marketing agencies won't even have thought of this, or it will just kind of be in the back of their minds. And so, as a consequence of that, a lot of the people that have gotten in touch with me are from marketing agencies, and they've gone, "Oh, wow, that's a great idea. That's a service that we should definitely add to our kind of portfolio that we can offer our clients. So are you interested in partnering with us?" So I say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, it's to understand the business model, because I think a lot of people that go into China, their first priority is on selling their own products, right? The whole licensing objective is super interesting, but would you define that as being a side business to what their main business is?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Right.
it depends on the industry, and it depends on the goal. I think the general way that it works, given most brands over the last 100 years, is that they have created this character to be associated with their products or their brand, and they've found, oh, people really like this character, and so they've gone and developed that character more and more, and put it more and more to use, and then they've found that they can actually generate side revenue, like through licensing,
Right.
And using the character to create their own products that are nothing like the original products that they started out selling. So it does generally tend to be a follow-on. When I say it should be the ultimate goal, I mean, that would be the ideal situation for anybody with a brand mascot character, where their character that has mostly been purposed for brand awareness has then kind of entered some reasonable level of popularity within the common culture, and is recognizable, so that they can go, okay, now we can start using this character more and more.
And I think it's also just fair to say, but I believe I've seen this, like the Louis Vuitton Vivienne. I think they even make now keychains of it, and they hang it on the bags when they sell the bags. Like I think I've seen that they've created these side products from it, not just the WeChat stickers, but actual products that they can either sell individually, or actually then attach to the bag, or as a print on the bag.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a super interesting world, and I wish more Western companies would think about developing these brand mascots in China, because I think it's something that, you had the quote somewhere regarding that it brings 5 times more sales. It's just phenomenal. I mean, 5 times more sales is just incredible. It's
than just a logo. Yeah. I mean, something that you and I have talked about before is that companies, because of the orthodox design thinking that we've grown up with for the last kind of 50 years, people recognize that design is important, and so they're more than happy to spend $5,000, $10,000, sometimes $100,000 just on basically a logo design, or at least a visual identity guide. And yeah, it is important to have a logo. It is important to have your own brand colors and visual identity and stuff like that. But if you think about it from the customer's perspective, like if you saw a logo, just any random logo and a character side by side, you're instantly going to emotionally connect more with the character, you know, because it's going to have a face, it's going to have some kind of personality just through the way that it's posed and the expression on its face and stuff like that.
How do you, we had this conversation before, so I do want to bring it up, and I think it's an interesting perspective from Westerners. I remember you telling me a story once how somebody said to you, oh, you know, Matt, I mean, my daughter can draw these things, right? Because they're cute cartoons, right? Anybody can create a cute cartoon. I think people don't realize the strategy development that goes behind creating that cartoon to then fit to the consumer. Right. And what it takes to make sure that you're not creating a mascot that would fit for US consumers, but you're creating a mascot that's going to fit for Chinese consumers, right? That's going to build that reputation. And like you said, it's something that could also be built for Asia, because the Asian mentality is very much into cartoons, cuteness, these creatures right behind you, that, you know, the adults love that stuff. But I do want to highlight just that point, because I sometimes also hear this on the side that, oh, you know, this isn't going to fit with China, or this doesn't fit with my brand. This doesn't fit with my image globally. How do you answer that? Right.
So first of all, I mean, there are plenty of success stories, as I mentioned at the beginning, just within Western culture of brand mascots having like a really strong impact. They don't tend to be quite as cute as the brand mascots that you get in China, but you know, if you're a Western company looking to move into China, that's something that you can tailor specifically for the Chinese market. I mean, maybe it's not a character that you want to use internationally. Maybe it is, but maybe it's something that you want specifically for targeting these 1.2 billion people that live here, that will really respond to it.
And don't forget, I mean, one thing that you were mentioning with the WeChat stickers, I think also people might not realize this. It's not just that you download the WeChat stickers and use it. It's that you use it with your whole network and in all of your chats.
Right.
Where then the other person is like, oh, I like that, is downloading it then through that. And then it spreads like wildfire to a huge network overnight, right? It's not just that you can download it and nobody else can download it. It's everybody, once you've started using one, everybody can download that if you share it along.
Right. And the beautiful thing about doing it on an official WeChat account, as opposed to just creating a sticker and kind of putting it out there, is if you create a set and then put them onto your official account, is that if somebody uses any one of those stickers within there, the person who receives it can click on it, and then it leads them to the download link for the entire set. So then they have it in that little scroll bar that I showed before. And it's right there on their phone. So they can just be talking with their friends, and they can go, oh, for this situation, I remember there was a sticker, or I remember this character, this would be funny. And they just scroll straight to it and then go click, and then boom, they've got access to the entire set.
Another question I had is, I mean, you're talking a lot about WeChat, but how are mascots used on other social media platforms, like Little Red Book, or on, I don't know, would you use them on e-commerce platforms? How would you use them on e-commerce platforms? How would you use it in other social media avenues? I mean, WeChat is the biggest one, I get it, but I'm just curious how you would use it on other areas, other channels.
Sure. So I would say in general at the moment, on most other platforms, you'll see a static version of the character as opposed to the animated version. I mean, you can put the animated version onto your website or whatever, and you know, could be dancing around doing whatever. But I would say in most cases, people will just add the static versions of the character onto their social media posts, websites, and stuff like that. And one of the benefits that you get from developing an entire set of stickers is that not only do you have those 16 full animations, but within each animation, you've got anywhere between 5 and 25 individual frames that are all individually designed. So another thing that people kind of underestimate is how much work goes into developing animated stickers. So they are easily our most requested service, but they take a lot of work as well. But like I say, as a benefit, what you get is you don't just get 16 animations, you get 16 times, let's say, 10.
20 frames or 10 frames, yeah.
So you've got 320, for example, individual frames, and each one of those is fully vectorized, full quality.
And you can use it then on any of those social media platforms or any of those e-commerce platforms to really promote and push.
Right. So you have a massive library of creative assets just from developing the stickers alone.
Interesting. How have brands been, and maybe you don't know how to answer this, but it's just like my thought process brainstorming. How do brands use the mascots for promotions? Like I'm just thinking in a supermarket, if I go and see F&B brands, right? Or you go into a Dunkin' Donuts store in China, right? How do they use the mascots in the actual retail outlets? How is that utilized?
So basically they will appear as, they'll appear on posters on the walls. They'll appear as like what they call standees, which is basically like a cardboard cutout that's sort of blown up, which is super cheap to produce. It costs next to nothing. They will put the characters onto their packaging, and then they might have like giveaways and peripherals and stuff like that, like little 3D toys that they give away. Like if you if you just like a Happy Meal set. Right.
And then, do you help with packaging design for China as well? Like if you're going to now incorporate that mascot onto the packaging design, and I mean, take it one step further, right? You're now saying, okay, we've got to repackage our products to have the mascot on it and whatnot. You do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like whether or not a company will say, look, we want to fit the mascot into our existing packaging because we're happy with the design, then okay, we can work that way. Another way is that we can actually develop a fresh set of packaging which fits well, with a mascot itself, which companies will also opt for because they don't want to. It's difficult to use the same packaging for more than 5 years, right? Without some kind of freshness, something new.
Understand. Well, Matt, we've run a little bit over time, so I do want to leave it there. But thanks so much for joining us. I find this topic fascinating from my point of view. I think it's super interesting. But for those of you that are watching live or watching it on replay, love to hear what your takeaway was. I will be sending out an email later on today with a link to the recording. I made a lot of notes, and I'll try and provide a bit of a summary on what Matt was talking about, some of the highlights that took my attention, what I got out of it. And then you can just go to the recording and watch it in your own free time. But do let us know what your biggest takeaway was. Just very briefly at the end, a little bit about my services. Trademark registration, Matt highlighted that throughout. So I do want to tie that in a bit. Don't forget to protect your assets. Make sure you are focusing on protecting your copyrights, your patents, etc. And just know that we've got webinars up and coming until the end of July, all related around marketing, around e-commerce and trade and selling into China. So if you've got any interest in that, don't hesitate to sign up and register for it. In the meantime, have a great day. Take care and goodbye. And Matt, thanks once again
Thank you for having me. Cheers.